Hello, everyone. Before we dive in, I was hoping you could drop a comment and tell me where you're listening from. And if you enjoy stories about justice and betrayal, hit that subscribe button. Now let's begin. My parents sent me to prison for 3 years for a crime I didn't commit. They stood in that courtroom, looked me straight in the eyes, and testified that I deliberately caused the car accident that killed my sister-in-law's unborn child. Every word was a lie. Every tear was rehearsed. They destroyed me to protect what they thought was theirs, but they made one critical mistake. They assumed I'd stay broken. I'm about to tell you how I went from inmate number 74921 to the woman who dismantled their entire empire piece by piece. But first, I need you to understand something. This isn't a story about forgiveness. This is a story about what happens when you corner someone who has absolutely nothing left to lose. My name is Maya Chen. At 33 years old, I was the founder and CEO of Horizon Data Systems, a cloud storage company I'd built from nothing in my parents' basement in San Jose. What started as late nights coding in sweatpants became a $90 million publicly traded company. I owned the majority shares. I signed every major contract. I represented the brand at every investor meeting. The tech magazines called me the future of Silicon Valley. My younger brother, Devin, never accepted that reality. 4 years younger than me, he'd always been the favorite, the son, the heir. Our parents spoke as if the company would naturally pass to him one day, as if I was just keeping his seat warm. Every time I announced record growth, my father would smile, but his eyes stayed cold. Every time Forbes profiled me, my mother would sigh and say, "Well, Devin will take it even further when it's his turn." Then Devin married Nicole. Beautiful, ambitious, and very clear about what she wanted. When she got pregnant, my mother was overjoyed. Finally, a grandson to carry on the Chen legacy. That's when everything started to fall apart. It was a Tuesday morning, raining hard enough to flood the freeway. My mother had called asking me to drive Nicole to her prenatal appointment because she was busy with some charity event. As the eldest daughter, I agreed. That's what you did in our family. You served without question. Nicole sat in the passenger seat of my Tesla, hand on her stomach, chatting about baby names and nursery colors. Then out of nowhere, she shifted the conversation to business. "Devin mentioned wanting to pull some capital for a side investment," she said casually. "What do you think?" I kept my tone neutral. We're in the middle of a major server expansion. Pulling funds now would tank the stock price and hurt everyone, including Mom and Dad's retirement accounts. Her face changed. "You always put the company before family, don't you? Devin is your brother. He deserves a bigger piece. You're just holding on to power to prove something." The argument escalated fast. She was gesturing wildly, her voice rising. And then, without warning, she lunged across the center console and yanked the steering wheel hard to the right. The car hydroplaned instantly. The tires screamed. The guardrail came up fast. I slammed the brakes, but we'd already hit. The airbags deployed. The windshield shattered into a spider web of cracks. When the car finally stopped, we were sideways across 2 lanes with traffic honking around us. "Are you okay?" I gasped, turning to her. Nicole clutched her stomach, her face suddenly pale. Oh God, the baby. The ambulance arrived within minutes. At the hospital, doctors confirmed she'd lost the pregnancy. I sat in that sterile hallway, numb with shock, waiting to hear she'd be okay. What I didn't expect was what came next. Nicole told the police I'd swerved deliberately, that we'd been arguing about money and I'd gotten so angry I tried to crash the car. Devin stood beside her hospital bed, holding her hand, his face a perfect mask of grief and rage. My parents rushed in. My mother embraced Nicole, sobbing. Then she turned to me with a look I'd never seen before. "Pure ice. How could you?" she whispered. The dashboard camera footage mysteriously disappeared. Later, forensic analysis showed the files had been completely wiped. My business and personal accounts were frozen under an emergency court order Devin filed, claiming I was mentally unstable and might flee the country. Without access to funds, I couldn't hire a top attorney. I got assigned an overworked public defender who barely glanced at my case before trial. The trial lasted 3 weeks. My parents took the witness stand. My mother testified through tears. Maya has always resented Devon. Even as children, she was jealous. My father added she controlled the company too tightly, never gave Devon a real chance to prove himself. Nicole, in a wheelchair with bandages visible, described the moment she felt the car deliberately steer toward the barrier. Devon held her, his voice cracking. She grabbed that wheel. I know she did. I testified calmly, explaining exactly what happened, but without physical evidence, my words meant nothing. The jury looked at me like I was a stranger, a successful CEO who'd finally snapped under pressure. The judge sentenced me to 3 years for involuntary manslaughter. When the gavel fell, I didn't cry. There was just this cold void spreading through my chest. Helplessness. That's all that was left. 3 years. 1,095 days. I scratched a line into the concrete wall of my cell for each one with a broken fingernail. Tomorrow would be the last mark. Tomorrow I'd walk out of the Reedsville Correctional Facility and everything would change. On my final week inside, they came to visit. All of them. My parents, Devon, Nicole. My mother wore pearls. My father wore his boardroom suit. Devon's tie was perfectly knotted. Nicole carried white lilies like she was visiting a grave. My father spoke first through the plexiglass partition. Maya, the documents are ready. You transfer majority voting shares to Devon and we stabilize everything. The company is hemorrhaging without you. Investors are nervous. One signature saves jobs, saves the legacy Grandpa built. My mother's voice was softer but just as calculated. It's the only way to protect what we worked for, honey. Devon leaned forward, his eyes meeting mine. Think about the big picture, sis. You always said Horizon was bigger than just one person. Nicole pressed her hand against the glass. After everything, you owe it to the family. Then another figure appeared. My youngest brother Marcus, 25, who had fired as CFO 18 months before my arrest for what seemed like minor accounting errors. He walked in wearing a sharp gray suit, looking more executive than I'd ever seen him. He sat down and took the phone from Devon. Family isn't about who's right or wrong, he said quietly. Sometimes it's about who survives. I looked at each of their faces. The parents who raised me, the brother who grew up in my shadow, the sister-in-law who joined this family 5 years ago. Something hardened inside me like steel cooling. I'm not signing anything, I said clearly into the phone. Ever. Consider this goodbye. My father's face turned to stone. My mother gasped. Devon gripped the phone harder. Marcus simply hung up the receiver without another word and walked away. The next morning, the prison gates opened at dawn. Outside, a crowd of reporters had gathered. Tech journalists, local news crews, even someone from a financial network. Cameras clicked as I stepped out in jeans and a simple sweater, carrying a clear plastic bag with my belongings. My family stood at the front holding white roses, their faces arranged in hopeful relief for the cameras. My mother stepped forward, arms open. Honey, we're so glad you're home. I walked right past her without breaking stride. The roses stayed extended, untouched. A sleek black Mercedes pulled up to the curb. The back door opened from inside. A man in his 30s stepped out. Sterling Brooks, Harvard Law, known for taking down corporate fraud cases and never losing. He'd rejected Devon's attempts to hire him 3 times in the past 2 years. Miss Chen, he said loud enough for the microphones to catch. Your car is waiting. I slid into the back seat. The door closed with a solid thunk that muffled the sudden barrage of questions outside. Through the tinted glass, I watched the scene shift. Reporters turned from my family to the car, shouting about who was picking me up and what it meant for Horizon Data Systems stock. My mother's arms dropped to her sides. My father's jaw worked silently. Devon stared at the license plate like he was memorizing it. Sterling settled into the driver's seat. The legal team is waiting at the penthouse. Everything is ready. I leaned back, feeling the smooth acceleration pulling us away. Take the long route, I said. I want to see the city again. Behind us, my former family remained surrounded by cameras, their reunion photo opportunity crumbling in real time. I didn't look back for long. What happened over the next 72 hours would later be taught in business schools as a case study in corporate takedowns. But for me, it was just the beginning of taking back what was mine. The penthouse overlooked downtown San Jose, all glass and clean lines. I walked into the bathroom and turned the shower as hot as I could stand, staying under it for what felt like hours. Scrubbing away 3 years of institutional soap and despair. When I finally emerged, Sterling Brooks and Margaret Davis were waiting in the living room with documents spread across the mahogany table. Margaret, 61, silver hair, former prosecutor turned corporate attorney, stood when I entered. "Welcome home, Miss Chen. We have much to discuss." I poured coffee into a real ceramic mug for the first time in years and sat down. Sterling slid the first folder toward me. "Revocation of the emergency power of attorney your brother filed. We're challenging it on grounds of fraud and lack of medical evidence. Your signature here reactivates your status as majority shareholder immediately." I signed without hesitation. Margaret placed another document in front of me. "Emergency motion for forensic audit and temporary freeze on all company assets. This goes to court this afternoon. Prevents any further fund transfers until the audit concludes." I signed that too. Then came the bombshell. Margaret pulled a small black USB drive from her briefcase, unlabeled except for a handwritten M in blue ink. "This is the backup," she said quietly. The original dash cam footage was destroyed, wiped from a server 17 months ago. Our forensic team spent this long reconstructing fragments from external backups and deleted email chains. It's all here. Internal communications, offshore transfers, shell companies, enough to prove systematic embezzlement. I took the drive. It weighed almost nothing. 3 years of my life reduced to 8 grams of plastic. Sterling's phone buzzed. "Motion filed. Hearing in 2 hours. The bank will comply or face contempt." I plugged the USB into the laptop. Files opened in neat folders. Spreadsheets with dates and amounts. Email threads between Devon and unknown accounts. Invoices for services that never existed. Millions diverted slowly, carefully, over years. It wasn't impulse, I realized. It was a plan. Across the city at the National Tech Conference, Devon was on stage mid-presentation about Horizon's new enterprise security suite. The slide behind him showed revenue projections I'd never authorized. He was announcing a $50 million partnership with Pacific Data Systems, the company's largest deal to date. The audience applauded as he invited their CEO on stage for the ceremonial signing. Devon pulled out the company's black titanium card to pay for the celebratory champagne. The terminal beeped once, declined. He laughed it off as a technical glitch and tried again. Second beep. Declined. Third attempt. The murmurs started. His phone buzzed. He stepped aside to answer, still smiling for the cameras. "Mr. Chen, this is compliance at Silicon Valley Bank. All corporate accounts have been frozen by court order effective immediately. No transactions will be authorized until further notice." The color drained from his face under the stage lights. The audience shifted uncomfortably. Someone in the back started recording. The CEO of Pacific Data stopped mid-handshake, suspicion clear on his face. Devon tried to save it, joking about technical difficulties, but the moment shattered. Within minutes, Horizon Cloud Crisis was trending on Twitter. Back in the penthouse, I closed the laptop. For the first time in 3 years, I felt something like control. "Tomorrow we take it public," Sterling said. I walked to the window. Below, the city lights stretched to the horizon. My city, my company, my life, all coming back together piece by piece. The USB drive sat on the table like a small black bomb waiting for the right moment. The morning light hit the penthouse just as Devon's phone began vibrating nonstop on his nightstand. 47 missed calls, messages from his assistant, board members, investors, all marked urgent. The first message read, "Call immediately. The medical records have been leaked." He opened the link. A scanned document from Valley Medical Center dated 3 weeks before the accident. Diagnosis: spontaneous miscarriage due to chronic work stress. No mention of trauma. Nicole's signature on discharge papers acknowledging the loss. His heart sank. The file had been submitted in the emergency audit motion and picked up by news outlets overnight. The headlines were already live. Horizon CEO's wife lost pregnancy before alleged accident. Doubts arise over founder's conviction. Devon ran down to the kitchen where Nicole was pouring coffee. She turned, smiling at first, then froze when she saw his face. "Is this true?" he snapped, shoving the phone at her. Nicole glanced at the screen and set her mug down carefully. "Yes." The room tilted. "You lost the baby before the accident, and you let all of us testify that Maya caused it." Her voice stayed steady. "You wanted her gone. The company was slipping through your fingers. I saw an opportunity. An opportunity." His shout echoed off the high ceilings. "You sent my sister to prison for 3 years for a lie." "Our lie," she corrected coldly. "You believed it because you wanted to. You needed her out of the way." He paced across the marble floor, hands in his hair. "The board is meeting today. Investors are pulling out. That Pacific deal is dead." Nicole went back to her coffee, then fix it. Deny it. Say the records are fake. They aren't fake. They're from Valley Medical. Your doctor, your signature. He stopped in front of her. "How could you look me in the eye every day knowing this?" "Why didn't you ever ask?" she said simply. "You were too busy celebrating your new title." Outside, a news helicopter circled the neighborhood. Devon's phone rang again. His father's name. He ignored it. "You're not the victim here," he said quietly. "Neither are you," Nicole countered. "We both wanted the same thing. I just made it happen." He stared at the woman he'd married, truly seeing her for the first time. "Out. Get out of this house." "With what money?" She laughed bitterly. "Your accounts are frozen too, remember?" He had no answer. Across town in downtown San Jose, the lobby of Horizon Data Systems buzzed with unusual energy. Staff whispered in huddles. Security at the doors had doubled. I walked into the executive conference room where a small press pool waited. 3 cameras, half a dozen reporters from local outlets and Bloomberg. I stepped to the podium in a simple black blazer, my hair pulled back. Flashes went off. "Thank you for coming on short notice. As majority shareholder and founder of Horizon Data Systems, I am announcing an independent forensic audit of all company finances effective immediately. This audit will be conducted by an outside firm with full cooperation of law enforcement if necessary." Questions erupted. "Miss Chen, what about the medical reports released last night? Is this related to your brother's management? Are criminal charges being considered?" I raised a hand. "Certain documents have come to light that raise serious questions about the events leading to my wrongful conviction. The truth will come out through proper channels. Until then, I am reassuming my role as chairperson. My goal is to protect this company and the thousands of employees who depend on it." One reporter persisted. "Do you believe your family framed you deliberately?" I looked directly into the camera. "The evidence will speak for itself. Justice always finds its way to the light." I stepped away after exactly 8 minutes. No more questions. That night, my phone showed 23 missed calls from my mother's number. I didn't answer. The lies were unraveling faster than they'd been woven. And for the first time, I wasn't the one paying the price. The afternoon traffic hummed through the tree-lined streets of Los Gatos as 2 moving trucks and a sheriff's SUV pulled up to the gates of the sprawling Chen estate. I stepped out of the Escalade, Sterling Brooks at my side, the eviction notice in his hand. The house, 6 bedrooms, infinity pool, home theater, had been titled solely in my name since before my parents moved in 20 years ago. The court recognized it without dispute. The gates opened. My parents, Devon and Nicole, stood on the front steps with suitcases already packed. My mother clutched a jewelry box. My father held a single garment bag. Devon's face was swollen from lack of sleep. Nicole kept her eyes on the ground. The sheriff read the order aloud. Immediate vacation of premises. Personal clothing and toiletries only. All furniture and items purchased with company funds must remain. My mother broke first. She dropped the jewelry box and ran toward me, arms outstretched. "Baby, please. This is our home. Think of your father's health." Her voice cracked into sobs. My father remained rigid, but his hands shook. The man who'd built boardrooms couldn't meet my eyes. Devon stepped forward. "Maya, think about what you're doing. This will be all over the news. It's already all over the news, I said quietly. Marcus arrived then in his Audi. He parked and walked slowly up the driveway, hands in his pockets. To anyone watching, he looked like the concerned younger son trying to mediate. He put a hand on my mother's shoulder, then turned to me. Little sis, maybe you should cool off. They're still our parents. His eyes met mine for a second longer than necessary. Steady. Knowing. Devin knelt on the stone steps. Amory, talk to her. You're the only one she might listen to. Marcus looked at him with an unreadable expression. You made your choices, he said simply, then turned away. Nicole finally spoke, her voice bitter. You're enjoying this, aren't you? I didn't answer. Neighbors had gathered behind the gates. Tech executives, the kind who valued privacy, but phones were out recording. A news van pulled up, camera rolling. The movers began carrying out marked items, artwork bought on company expense accounts, custom Italian kitchen appliances, gym equipment built as an executive wellness program. My mother collapsed on the steps sobbing. My father finally moved to help her, but his legs seemed unsteady. 30 minutes later, they were outside the gates with 3 suitcases and 2 duffel bags. The gates clicked shut behind them. By nightfall, videos circulated on Twitter and local news. Chen family evicted. Tech founders' revenge. I watched from the entryway as the trucks drove away. The house felt suddenly empty. Marcus was the last to stay. Are you okay? He asked quietly once the others were gone. I nodded once. He squeezed my arm briefly, the only physical contact we'd had in years. Then he left. Inside, I stood alone in the foyer that still smelled faintly of my mother's perfume. The silence was heavier than any argument we'd ever had. For the first time, I wondered if revenge felt like victory or just another kind of loss. The boardroom at Horizon Data Systems felt heavier than usual. I sat at the head of the long glass table, city skyline visible through floor to ceiling windows. The 12 board members were present, some in person, others via video from San Francisco and London. No one spoke as they waited for me to begin. We are here to address the financial and leadership irregularities uncovered in the ongoing audit. Margaret Rhodes stood beside me, projecting the first slide. A timeline of suspicious transactions dating back 3 years. The room shifted uncomfortably. The door opened. Marcus walked in with a thick accordion folder. He placed it on the table with a soft thud. With the board's permission, I'd like to present additional evidence. A few members exchanged glances. Marcus had been invited as an observer, his shares from our mother's trust giving him that right. But no one expected this. He opened the folder and began laying out documents, printed emails, bank statements, invoices for non-existent consulting services, offshore accounts in the Caymans linked to shell companies, payments to a private investigator who'd followed me before the accident, bribes to the dash cam technician, small amounts through gift cards and payment apps. I started compiling this the day Maya fired me, Marcus said quietly. Those accounting errors weren't random. They were the first signs of systematic embezzlement. I pretended to stay neutral with the family to keep my access. At every Sunday dinner, every holiday, I documented what I could. He looked at me. That day in the visiting room, I chose her side. I just needed time to prove why. The room erupted in questions. Margaret confirmed chain of custody. Everything was forensically digitized with timestamps intact. I let discussion play out for 10 minutes before calling for a vote. Motion to remove Devin Chen from all positions effective immediately and refer findings to federal authorities. Hands went up one by one, unanimous. Months passed in depositions and discovery. The U.S. Attorney's Office took over. Wire fraud, embezzlement, perjury, conspiracy. The trial lasted 6 weeks at the federal courthouse. My parents took a plea deal, 18 months each for perjury and conspiracy. They lost all voting rights in the company trust. Nicole testified against Devin in exchange for probation. 5 years probation and a permanent criminal record. Devin fought harder. His defense claimed it was aggressive but legal business strategy. The jury didn't buy it. Guilty on all counts. 10 years in federal prison without possibility of parole for 7, plus 12 million in restitution. I sat in the front row every day. My mother cried silently when his name was called. My father stared straight ahead. Nicole looked at no one. When it was Devin's turn, the judge recited the charges: embezzlement, wire fraud, conspiracy to commit perjury, and the wrongful conviction of Maya Chen. Devin finally turned toward me as the bailiff approached. His mouth formed my name, but no sound came out. I held his gaze without blinking. The confusion, the anger, the pleading, it was all there. But so was mine. 3 years lost, a company nearly destroyed, trust shattered beyond repair. They led him away. The courtroom doors closed with heavy finality. Outside, reporters waited, but I slipped out a side exit with Margaret. The rain had started, soft and steady. A year later, I sat in the visiting room of the Federal Correctional Institution. The plexiglass between us was scratched and cloudy. Devin looked different. The orange jumpsuit hung loose. His hair was cut short, eyes circled by fatigue. He picked up the phone. "Thanks for coming. I didn't think you would." I said nothing. "I know sorry doesn't fix anything, but I've had time to think." "A lot of time." He paused. "Mom and Dad ask about you in every letter. They want to know if you're okay." I kept my expression neutral. Devin leaned closer. "The company is doing well. I read the quarterly reports in the prison library. Marcus is killing it as CEO." I nodded once. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed to see you to say it to your face." Finally, I spoke. "There is no forgiveness. Not for you, not for Mom or Dad. The blood bond is broken. Legally, emotionally, completely. I changed my name on all documents months ago. You are strangers now." His face crumbled. "I transferred full ownership to Marcus. He's the only one who chose what was right over what was easy. He earned it." Devin's knuckles turned white on the phone. "I deserve this." "Yes," I said, "you do." When the guard signaled time, Devin pressed his palm against the glass. I hung up without waiting and walked out into the dry California air. Some losses are permanent. Some decisions define us forever. But survival means deciding who gets to stay in your life and who doesn't, and living with that decision without apology. Did you enjoy this story? Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from. I'd love to hear your thoughts. On screen, you can see 2 more life stories I think you'll love. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next one.